Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4. I watched it this morning, and then I've been dealing with a shoulder injury all day, so anyways, that's why this review is really late in the day, much later than usual. Anyways, so let's just get right into it. So this was actually a pretty short episode, which, honestly, as I always try to point out to people, if the episode has a lot of substance to it, then it doesn't really matter how short it was, you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of artificially lengthen any episode if you want a number, but I don't see why that matters so much if the episode has a lot of things going on in it, so whatever. Anyways, so I want to go over what's happening in the present day, and then we'll go over the big flashback that happens. So, you know, present day, not a whole lot's going on here. We're still with Din and Bo-Katan with the Mandalorian, the cult, right? What does he call them? There's a different word he calls them, but they're the cult. They're the children of the watch, you know? Is it the convert? No, there's some other word. Anyways, so they're there, and a bunch of Mandalorians are training, and we see Bo-Katan kind of looking around, seeing how, you know, they really have this built community here, you know, like they're really into the Mandalorian culture, obviously in much more of the old superstitious type ways than she has ever been, you know. But, you know, she's kind of just sticking around, and, you know, for a while we've been thinking that maybe she's using them in a way, maybe she's just pretending to go along with it until she can, I don't know, conquer the mythosaur and take over the whole cult, and now she has like a whole army to herself, you know. But it almost doesn't quite seem that way, because what ends up happening is, well, first we get Grogu going up against that one newly, you know, the brand new foundling that took the creed just the first episode, which, by the way, turns out to be a Vizsla, right? He's Paz Vizsla's son. All right, I think it's Paz Vizsla. Anyways, Grogu fights him, and it's actually a pretty fight. I didn't know how they were gonna do this. I was like, okay, well, I don't think they have any problem with him using the Force. I mean, the Armorer knows that he's, you know, he's a sorcerer, as you would call them, right? So I don't think they have any problem with him using the Force. I don't think it would be against the rules, but they have little tiny baby Mandalorian darts put on Grogu's wrist, and it's like this tiny little thing, and, you know, you have to just imagine that they must have built all these supplies just for someone his size. It's just really funny seeing, like, on this little tiny arm. Anyway, so they're gonna try and shoot these darts at each other, which are just paintballs right now, as sort of just practicing their little exercise. And of course, he eventually does his really funny looking Grogu force jump over him, and then force jumps back and shoots him 3 times with the paintballs, and so he wins. Which, you know, just kind of, we're continuing along the lines of, like, Grogu is now more capable than he ever has been in this entire show, you know, not just because, you know, he's spent time with Luke, but also because, like, you know, I guess you could say he's kind of dealing with things in his past, and he's kind of like remembering what happened to him, even though I guess he seemingly shut out some of those memories in the past, and Luke sort of reawoken those memories, and we see some of those in this episode, but we'll get back to that. Anyways, their training is interrupted by another flying monster this time. It's like this big dragon looking thing, and it picks the kid up, the Paz Vizsla's son. It picks him up, and they have to go after him, and so we have like this cool little whole crew of Mandalorians trying to chase this thing down, but they have to be all quiet, otherwise this thing will kill the kid. So, you know, it's just a large sequence of them climbing and flying and trying to sneak up on this nest, and then they encounter 3 baby dragons, and they have to survive them. But eventually, of course, they get the kid. They shoot down the mom dragon, who gets eaten by the giant Jurassic Park dragon, you know, whale thing that we saw in the first episode. It gets eaten by that in the water. So Bo-Katan actually ends up taking the 3 babies back to the Mandalorians, and I guess they just have baby dragons now, which I guess they'll ride these things. I guess that's the idea, which, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, if you can train them and you know, just like now they're just dragons you got, I guess, so why not? You know what I mean? I mean, it's not unheard of in the Star Wars universe to just find a thing and then ride it, and I guess that's your pet now. anyways, so that happened, and really all we know now is that, like, well, first Bo-Katan was, you know, they all stopped and camped for the night, and they're, you know, Bo-Katan's like, well, how do you eat with these masks on? You know, which is kind of a funny question that a lot of people have been bothered by the mask thing. I think even since season 1, they've been asking, like, well, how do they do this? How do they do that? And I'm like, well, first, this is a fantasy TV show. You can just, they don't ever have to show any of that on screen, so it doesn't really matter. But fine, if you want answers, here's your answer. They literally all separate, go their separate ways. That way they don't see each other's faces, and then they take their helmets off and eat. And because Bo-Katan was the leader of this mission, she's allowed to stay by the campfire. So there you go. She gets to take her helmet off for a second. Anyways, the other interesting thing going on with Bo-Katan is that she actually tells the armorer about the mythosaur, or she tries to, at least. She's like, hey, what would you say if I saw a mythosaur, like a real life one, for real? And the armorer thinks, she's like, oh, you saw a vision, that's great. Yeah, we all see visions. We all see, you know, because obviously the armor's like full in on all the supernatural stuff, and Bo-Katan's trying to be real, saying like, no, I don't mean like metaphorically. I mean I really saw one. And then the armor's just like, this is the way. This is, you know. So it's like, okay, do you not believe me? Do you not, like, because this is like your superstitious stuff, and you're not buying me when I say I saw this for real. So it's interesting that Bo-Katan would tell the armorer, but she did not tell Din, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. You know, I feel like at first she was definitely like, okay, this will be a card that I play later. This will be like something I hold, you know, close to the chest, be a little secret, and then whenever I need it, I can go back to Mandalore, get this mythosaur, and there you go. Now I'm the leader. But she went ahead and just told the armorer about it, which you would think, you know, if there's anyone who's gonna really fight her for leadership, it would be the armorer, because obviously she's in charge of the cult right now. So it's interesting that Bo-Katan would tell her about it, you know, even if she didn't end up believing her. So it's not entirely clear what's going through Bo-Katan's head. Is she really buying into the cult? Is she buying into the old ways because she saw the mythosaur, or does she doesn't have anywhere to go right now? So it's like, I might as well stay here with these people until I can figure something out. So yeah, it's not entirely clear what her plan is with the mythosaur. You know, she didn't tell Din, like very purposefully, she didn't tell him, but she did try to tell the armorer. So interesting. Also, you know, there's been all kinds of theories that maybe they know each other, but that does not seem to be the case. You know, even when they were alone, they didn't really seem to say anything to each other. But Bo-Katan did get she got a mythosaur emblem on her shoulder now, because she lost one of her shoulder pieces. So, you know, I guess is this indicating that she really is like buying into the cult now? Is she really going to be like living this life? Or is it really just because she knows at least that one part of all the myths is real? There really is a mythosaur. Who knows, really? And it would be interesting if Bo-Katan did go full in on this cult, because I've seen a couple of people say this. They're having problems with the show, you know, at least in their point of view. They think that the show is pro-cult, you know, like the cult is a good thing. The cult maybe isn't evil or something. Whereas a lot of people watching this show, and at times myself, have kind of gone like, no, surely the direction they're taking is that Din and Bo-Katan will leave the cult and they'll start their own thing, and they'll realize that all these ancient superstitions are not the way, you know. So, you know, that's kind of the direction a lot of people thought that this was headed, but now it's like, well, maybe not. Maybe they really are buying into it, because Bo-Katan, you know, we thought that she was going to play some kind of card here with the mythosaur, and she kind of didn't. Now, however, you know, as I've pointed out a couple times in my last review and on Twitter, I was like, well, if you really think about the Children of the Watch as sort of a mirror commentary on the Jedi, right? Like, why are so many Star Wars fans fully bought in on the Jedi, right? And it's like, we've seen how weird and culty the Jedi are. We've seen that they take children when they're like literally babies, right? And they indoctrinate them in their ways, and they teach them like, you can't, you can't form too much attachments to people. You have to be able to let them go. You gotta condition your emotions. You gotta be under control of all that stuff. Like they kind of teach them these sort of possibly unhealthy things. Like, so when you think about it in that sense, it's like, because we're just being introduced to these children of the Watch, we're like, oh well, they're obviously wrong and it's a cult and it's weird. But then you turn around and you're like, well, hold on, are the Jedi not equally weird and messed up, right? So you kind of start to think of like, oh, is this like a commentary on that? And I think it's because we know that the Force is a real thing in this universe, right? So like that's why we're so willing to accept the Jedi as being correct, as being like, oh yeah, the Jedi were right because the Force exists, and like that was, so that proves that they were right. But then the mythosaur also exists. So what if everything that the children of the Watch believe, what if all that also turns out to be real? You know what I mean? So like if that's the direction this is headed, then you kind of have like, oh, these different belief systems, there is evidence of them being correct, maybe, or maybe they're equally bad. Like it starts all these other questions start coming up. So it's really interesting. So I don't know, I saw some people get kind of upset that like maybe the show is saying the cult is actually good, which I don't think that's what it's doing. I think it's just trying to maybe point out a little bit about like, oh yeah, isn't it weird how they make these kids start training and then they have to like take these creeds and these promises and they have to wear these uniforms. Where have we seen that before? So it's like, oh yeah, we have seen that before in this universe, haven't we? So I don't know, I think that's more of what they're going for here, but that's just me. Anyways, so that's all that really happens in the present day, right? Like we, some people were complaining that last episode we didn't spend a whole lot of time with Mando, so it's like, okay, fine, this whole episode's with Mando. Okay, Mando and Bo-Katan doing their thing, and it really is just like, you're just supposed to wonder about like, well, where is Bo-Katan's head at right now? Like, what's going on with them and the Mandalorians? And yeah, they're kind of just hanging out here, but it is sort of like, Bo-Katan is being fully taken in. Like, she was even made the leader on one of their missions, even though she just got here, right? So it is kind of interesting. Now, I still have a lot of questions, like, does the Armorer know Bo-Katan on a personal level? Have they met each other before this? Is no one gonna comment on the fact that, hey, Din Djarin has the Darksaber, but he's not in charge of this little group right now? Why is that? Is it because he doesn't have control over it, and so he's not really wielding it like a leader would? Is that the idea? Like, I still have questions that hopefully they answer someday. But in any case, I'm fine with just like having an episode where they're just like, yeah, we're just hanging out. This is our little, there's our little cult cave, and we, another monster came. And I know a lot of people making the joke of like, why don't they move somewhere else? Because this is the second time that exact same location has been attacked by a giant monster. And it's like, yeah, but that kind of goes hand in hand with what the Mandalorians are all about, right? Like the old school Mandalorians, like they would try to fight and conquer giant monsters all the time, wouldn't they? Like, isn't that the whole thing with the mythosaur? So, I get the joke, it's funny, right? But it also, like, I think it kind of says something about their people. Like, yeah, this is exactly what they would do. They would stay here and they would fight any giant monster that comes along. Like, that's just kind of their thing. Anyways, so let's get to the flashback. While everyone else is gonna go save this foundling, Grogu has a flashback, because just like in season 1, I love that they brought this back, the Armorer is making Grogu a piece of armor for his chest. It's a tiny little chest plate, and just like in season 1, while all of that is happening, Grogu kind of goes into like this daydream where he starts thinking about his past and like, oh, this is just what Din Djarin did. So he starts thinking about his past, and we once again get to that segment where the Jedi are protecting him during Order 66. But of course, the whole scene plays out now, and so they're all protecting him, and a bunch of them are dying. And there's like 4 or 5 Jedi all dying, which again, I'm thinking like, okay, Grogu seems particularly significant here, because you have like 5 Jedi protecting one youngling. What about all the other younglings? What about all the other, what about all the other Padawans? Like, because we saw with, for example, Reva was in the middle of a class where there were like 8 of them, and there was like their one teacher that was in the middle of teaching them when this happened. But you know, all the same, it's like Grogu was so important that he was instantly flanked by like 5 Jedi to protect him, but this other class full of younglings was not. What's so special about Grogu, right? Anyway, so they're like, oh, get him to is it Kevlar? I don't remember his name. But anyways, they're like, go get him to this Jedi, go, and they like shove him in the elevator, and they're all dying, and so he gets to the elevator, and there is a Jedi waiting for him, and it is Ahmed Best's character from the they did a short series of YouTube videos where it was a children's kind of a hidden temple, like the old Nickelodeon show, where they like there's like an obstacle course, and there's a couple like challenges that they're all competing in order to be a Jedi, like it's like Jedi Temple or something like that. Anyways, so it's that Jedi, the Jedi character that he was for that game show, that, you know, it's not like entirely canon because it's like a children's game show. It's like a fun little thing they did, right? But it is the same character, and so he's there, and he picks up one of the fallen Jedi's lightsabers, and he's like deflecting with, you know, dual wielding sabers, and he's really awesome, and he's doing his thing. And then him and Grogu get on a speeder bike, and they do like this epic chase. They're being chased by the clones, which again, you know, it's like I guess you could say like, oh, maybe they would have chased down any Jedi who fled the temple, but like they were really going after him and Grogu. So I'm like, I don't know. I feel like the fact that you had all these Jedi protecting Grogu, and you had like one of the Jedi Masters just like waiting at the top of the elevators for Grogu to show up, it feels like he's extra significant. You know, like he was already like really important before this happened, and they were already like ready to protect him specifically. So I don't know. That's the vibe I keep on getting from this moment, because I'm like, well, why just him? Why not, where's the other kids at? You know, like the other kids are also being attacked right now, but you're like, no, Grogu, this one specifically, we gotta protect him. So I don't know. That's just me. Maybe I'm imagining it. I don't know. Anyways, so they do this cool chase. They meet up with a Naboo ship, not a starfighter, but a cruiser, I guess you'd call it. A Nubian. You know, it looks like Padme's ship. It's probably not specifically hers, because I believe she ended up taking hers to Mustafar, right? So it can't be hers, right? Anyways, but it's got a bunch of Nubian guards there, and so it's like, did Padme send them, or did some other situation happen? Because Naboo also had a queen, so maybe she sent them. I don't know. It's unclear exactly what the deal was, but they were there waiting for the Jedi to show up, and so they get in a shootout with some clones, and then they get in their ship, and it's just the Jedi and Grogu, and then they blast off, and they're out of there. So what happened after that? Who knows? Is this Jedi Master still alive? I mean, it seems doubtful, right? Because obviously it's been like 20 years, and all we know is that at some point Grogu went from the custody of this Jedi Master to being held by those pirates from the very first episode, right? So obviously lots of time in between those two instances. So unfortunately, I think this does mean that that Jedi Master likely is not alive. But of course, they can always, they can say he lived for another 15 years or something, like there's all kinds of stories you can make up from this point. So that's kind of cool. You could have Ahmed Best's character show up, who knows where else. So that's kind of interesting, actually. Anyways, so now we finally have our answer as to like how Grogu got out of the Jedi Temple. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's gonna be Mace Windu, or it's gonna be Anakin himself took him, or like people wanted like some kind of really big name, right? But I think people only want that because it was left as a question mark, and when you leave things as a question mark, people want like this really big answer, right? Which this was a really cool answer, but I'm also glad that it was not, it wasn't like a major character, like, it wasn't like a Mace Windu or something, like I'm glad that it was just a Jedi Master, like we know the actor is significant, but like if it was, for all intents and purposes, this was just a Jedi Master, right? Like this wasn't like a guy who's been in a bunch of movies or something, right? So I am kind of happy about that, because it would feel too small to be like, oh yeah, Mace Windu survived that jump and he went back to the Jedi Temple and he had to go save Grogu, and or oh, it was the Bad Batch who did it for some reason and they went the Bad Batch saved Grogu, you know, all these theories that had come out. So I'm kind of glad that it was just a Jedi helped him out like that, and that's what happened. You know, now again, it did kind of seem like he was pretty significant for all these Jedi to die just to get him out of there, but you know, who knows if that's going to go anywhere. But I'm happy that we finally got that answered. You know, it does feel like, okay, we can move on from this point. There's still plenty of time to explore his past, but at the very least, we know for sure how he got out of the temple and how he escaped. I'm sure they'll probably write a book. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we need a bunch of flashbacks to like show like, and then they went to this planet and then they went to this planet. It's like they have enough plot to go on for now, so I don't think they need to keep doing the flashbacks. But they could very well come out with a book just like all about Grogu and this Jedi Master trying to escape and get out of there, and then by the end of the book Grogu gets taken by these pirates, and then there you go, right? That would totally add up for me. So anyways, yeah, this was a pretty solid episode. We got obviously, you know, some pretty good reveals, and while not much happened like in the present day, I am happy that we got to just see like, yeah, this is just a day in their life right now. A day in the life of this cult. A giant monster attacks, they gotta go save a foundling, you know, they're all training and fighting each other, you know, like that's just how this goes. And Bo-Katan, I don't know what's going through her head right now. I thought for sure she was like planning ahead and gonna use the mythosaur as some kind of secret card that she plays, but no, she kind of just tried to tell them, but they didn't exactly listen to her. So I don't know what happens now. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. And one more thing, I've seen a lot of people say like, this season 3 seems off, something feels wrong about this, and I'm like, if you mean like it's not as simplistically moving forward, because I think what people are trying to get across is that, you know, in season 1 and season 2, you had like, okay, guy finds kid, everyone wants kid, guy has to run away with kid, right? And then in season 2, you had like, okay, gotta get him to the Jedi, but first we need to find some Mandalorians, and then we find the Mandalorians, and then they bring us to some Jedi, and then the baby gets stolen, Jedi saves the day, right? Like that's, and I think it's because, you know, unlike those 2 seasons, this season so far has very much been like there's not like an overstated goal of like, you know, Din is sent on a mission specifically to go do a thing, you know, like he kind of did that. He got himself in the waters, and now he's redeemed, and like that was it, you know. So obviously something else is gonna happen. I'm pretty sure all the Pershing stuff and all the Coruscant stuff is gonna come back. In fact, we know it is because we saw parts in the trailer for season 3 of more Coruscant type stuff. So I don't know. I think the structure of like what the plot is gonna be is very much like, it's not as straightforward as past seasons, and that's like bothering some people. But if you go back to those past seasons, the actual thing of like, you know, get Grogu to a Jedi, that didn't start till like halfway through the season, you know, like they spend the first few episodes just hanging out, really. Like they, you know, like get the frog lady here, go over here, and you meet Bo-Katan for the first time, and then you and Bo-Katan's crew are gonna go take over this ship, you know. And like, so like they didn't actually do the whole Ahsoka and Luke thing for a while. So I don't know, I feel like people are having a little impatience now. I don't know, they're not enjoying the show for what it is. Like this is Saturday morning adventures, guys. Like, I don't know, I feel like people need to be more patient. That's just me. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.